Welcome to the Honorable Vito J. Titone Awards. I am the Acting Project Director for Staten Island Legal Services. I hope that you and your loved ones are safe during this pandemic. Thank you for joining this virtual event to recognize our 2020 honorees, Kramer, Levin, and Gloria Middleton, and for your support. As part of Legal Services New York City, Staten Island Legal Services opened its door in 2004 to serve Staten Island residents and to fight poverty and seek racial, social, and economic justice. Today, we're a staff of over 30 and provide free civil legal services for low-income residents in housing, foreclosure prevention, domestic violence family law, special education advocacy, LGBTQ HIV advocacy, and immigration. In December of 2019, we became a New York City Financial Empowerment Center by collaborating with Neighborhood Trust Financial Partners to provide free financial counseling and coaching. I am proud and thankful of all the work our staff is doing during this public health emergency. Some of this work includes increasing our capacity in the areas of public benefits and unemployment insurance in response to COVID-19, assisting clients in obtaining emergency financial assistance, ensuring our clients are aware of the constant changes within the legal system, strengthening our partnerships and referral process with local community-based organizations, and successfully navigating virtual conferences and hearings to advocate for all of our clients, including survivors of domestic violence seeking protection and breaking free from abuse. Today, however, we want to recognize our honorees for their fight against poverty and their demand for justice. We recognize Gloria Middleton, the President of Communication Workers of America, CWA Local 1180, for securing a $15 million settlement against the City of New York on behalf of administrative managers for years of pay bias based on gender and racial discrimination. This settlement impacted over 100 Staten Island workers and mostly women of color, and other minorities working as administrative and supervisory workers. We also recognize Kramer Levin for working on impact litigation to benefit the Lunicorns, the first Latinx LGBTQ group in Staten Island. Kramer Levin is litigating a mandamus action in response to the United States Citizenship and Immigration Services new scheduling policies that create an indefinite backlog of affirmative asylum cases. Without this mandamus action, our clients' lives would be forced to remain in limbo for years. Gloria, Middleton, and Kramer Levin, thank you and congratulations. Although coronavirus has infected people regardless of income, it has caused a devastating hit to those living in poverty, and it has disproportionately impacted Black and Latinx communities. The lack of wealth, services, and resources to fall back on, and systems of racism and bias dictated the disproportionate loss and suffering for these communities. In order to fight poverty, we must challenge structures of oppression and other forms of bias, and uphold diversity, equity, and inclusion as core values. In the midst of uncertainty, I know one thing is true. Staten Island, a borough geographically separated from the rest of New York City, and with limited resources, will need free civil legal services for its low-income residents. We hope to be there with your support. I want to give a special thank you to all of the members of our advisory board, including our honorary chair, Judge Matthew J. Titone, Surrogate Court Judge of Richmond County. Thank you for your help and support. I also want to recognize David Wilkins, Director of our Immigration and LGBTQ HIV Advocacy Units, for his help with this event. Thank you to all of you for your support and contributions. Hope you enjoy the program, and thank you.
Hello, I'm Surrogate Matthew Titone of Richmond County. Today I'd like to congratulate Staten Island Legal Services as it continues its important work demanding justice for Staten Island's most vulnerable and often most desperate communities. Whether it's preventing evictions or foreclosures, or securing the safety and stability for victims of domestic violence, Staten Island Legal Services works tirelessly for the rights, protections, and of course dignity of Staten Island, including our LGBTQ+ community, our immigrant and disabled family members, friends, and neighbors. And while we cannot be together today in person to celebrate the accomplishments of Staten Island Legal Services at the annual Judge Titone Luncheon, we can still express our heartfelt gratitude to those who helped make the work of Staten Island Legal Services possible. My father, as many of you know, was a fierce advocate for equality and justice for all, and he would be so very, very proud of all of the work that Staten Island Legal Services has accomplished throughout the years. And though remote, I would still personally like to thank and applaud Ms. Gloria Middleton, President of CWA Local 1180, as well as the entire membership of Local 1180. Your hard work, not just for your members, but for all Staten Islanders in need, is inspiring and truly commendable. Thank you. I'd also like to congratulate the firm of Kramer, Levin. Your dedication and advocacy on behalf of LGBTQ+ community in New York has been truly inspiring and has touched the lives of so many, many New Yorkers, including those living on Staten Island. So thank you for that. And finally, a heartfelt thank you to Project Director Nadia Hernandez. I know these have been very challenging and difficult times to work in, but each and every time that the need arises, you have risen to the occasion. And we, as Staten Islanders, are truly grateful. And of course, to the Advisory Board of Staten Island Legal Services, who continues to support the great work of Staten Island Legal Services, my good friends Jennifer, Carmen, Steve, Eileen, Rosemary, and Christopher. Thank you. And to the staff of Staten Island Legal Services, as well as all the pro bono attorneys who help make the remarkable work of Staten Island Legal Services possible, I say to you, please, keep up the great work, because now more than ever, we need you to continue to demand justice for all Staten Islanders and for all New Yorkers. Thank you, and congratulations to all.
I would like to introduce you to Tashana Golden. Tashana leads our housing practice as the director of the housing unit. As a native Staten Islander, Tashana has strong ties to the communities we serve. Here's Tashana with Gloria Middleton in a conversation about pay equity and racial justice. Hope you enjoy this interview.
Gloria Middleton is the president of Communications Workers of America Local 1180 and is the first African American and the first female to lead the 9,000 active member local. Previously, Gloria served as the union's secretary-treasurer since 2001 and has been the local's chief financial officer and chief operating officer. She is a steering committee member of the Municipal Labor Committee and is an executive board member of the New York City Central Labor Council. Gloria has been honored in part by the Boy Scouts of America Greater New York Council, the Black Institute, the NAACP, the Bill Lynch Democratic Club, and received congressional recognition from Congresswoman Sheila Jackson Lee for her work with the CWA National Civil Rights and Equity Committee. CWA Local 1180 union membership is overwhelmingly comprised of women, women of color, and other minorities working as administrative and supervisory workers. In April 2019, under Gloria's leadership, CWA Local 1180 obtains a $15 million settlement against the City of New York on behalf of administrative managers for years of pay bias based on gender and racial discrimination. At LISNY, we seek to provide a space where diversity, equity, and inclusion is at the forefront. The goal is for everyone to be able to bring their full selves to the table and be treated in a way that takes into consideration our differences and corrects any inequities as a result. As president of CAW, Gloria is committed to leading a politically progressive local that organizes, mobilizes, and empowers members to improve their standard of living and that of all New Yorkers. Gloria continues to put Local 1180 on the map as one of, if not the most, progressive, outspoken unions as the voice of all working people. We are pleased to honor Gloria Middleton for her historic victory and work consistent with our mission. Good morning, good afternoon, Gloria.
Hi.
Hi. So after that introduction, I just have a few questions for you. The first, can you speak about how the wage gap disproportionately affects people of color and how that impacts outcomes across the board?
Okay, well, first of all, thank you for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for this great honor. As you read what I have done, it's hard to believe that that has been accomplished, because for me, it's just natural to want to work for and fight for working people. The wage gap between women of color, different ethnicities. If you look at statistics, and I have the statistics from 2018, white women earn 81.5% less than white men. Black women earn 65.3% less than white men. Hispanics is even greater, it's 61.6% less than white men. And these are statistics that you can look up and you can find if you Google it, and it's atrocious. In 2020, that we are still talking about the wage gap for women across the board and ethnicities across the board. When we went to look at our administrative managers some years ago, after we gained the ability to represent them, we went to look at their wages and was astounded by the fact that as minority women became part of that title, the minimum salary never increased because they were not part of a union. That's number one. As well as we saw the maximum for that salary went anywhere, it started at 50,000 and went up to 150,000. We saw that there was something wrong with that picture. And when we investigated and looked at who was making the highest salaries, guess who it was? White males. So the city, as progressive as New York City appears to be, still is not in the progressive mode of changing wages for minorities and women, especially women of color.
Yes, that is very helpful. For clarification, you started your answer by saying that white women make 81% less, and then you did the different demographics. Did you mean they make 81% of, is the pay gap that 80 cents to 100 cents, like 80 cents to $1 for white women?
Exactly.
60 cents, okay.
Exactly.
Yep.
I'll give you an example. If a white man makes $1,000 a week, a white woman would make $817 a week.
Right. With the wage gap, can you talk a little bit about how those, in that scenario where you have $800 as opposed to $1,000, and then $600 as opposed to $1,000, how does that impact across the board? How does that impact the households run by these women?
Listen, I could say so many things, and it's not just about the women, not just about that, but it's the racial disparity, period. Because if we go into statistics about what Black men earn, that's a whole nother story. But it affects the household of minorities, period. We live in New York City, one of the most high rent. When you go to the grocery stores, we pay more money for our groceries. You have coffee that you have to use to get on the buses or the trains. Those rates are high. It affects the median income of the community. That affects how we get money into our schools. It affects how business is done in the community. It affects so many things that keeps us, instead of rising to what we want to call the American dream, it keeps us down. And I think it's done systematically for a reason for that. And until we keep pushing to change that wage gap and keep having the city, especially New York City, where we live, to look at these statistics, the improvement is not going to happen. We also passed legislation through the City Council, Intro 633, that requests the income variances for city workers, civil across the board. We just did that also in 2019, and we're waiting for that to happen, for those statistics to come in. It's supposed to come in through the mayor's office first and then go to the City Council. Of course, COVID-19 came, and then the Black Lives Matter movement came. So things have been kind of put at a pause, but we're not forgetting, especially with the Black Lives Matter movement, this is the perfect time for the city and the council to look at these statistics to see how we are going to improve the life of minorities in this great city.
Great. So that answer is actually a perfect segue to my next question. So in the COVID-19 reality, we have seen the disparate impact on communities of color. We just entered into phase 4, or I think we're in the middle of phase 3 and 4. So what, if anything, do you believe should be done to assist these communities as the world reopens in the hopes to prevent a resurgence?
Okay, well, we cannot do what we did before COVID-19. We cannot have a full mass amount of people going out into these giant buildings and having 2 feet of space between desks. That can't happen anymore. We have to do something different with how people go to work. It can't be a 9-to-5 job. We're gonna have to do schedules. We're going to have to look at our healthcare system and see exactly what is happening with minorities who don't have healthcare. The Affordable Care Act helped those people who have a job, who can then go and select their healthcare at a reasonable rate. But what about those millions of people who don't have any healthcare or are Medicaid members, clients? We need to reevaluate our healthcare system. We need to reevaluate how in these communities of color, how do we educate people about their health? We need to educate people about how to be able to go back and forth to work when you have elders at home, and how to make sure that you protect yourselves and those elders so that this virus doesn't spread in these communities. Unfortunately, in these communities, there are parents, grandparents, children living together because rent is so high, so you can't afford to have separate apartments. And parents are getting older, so you want to take care of them. So there has to be a new discussion on how we take care of not only our elders, but healthcare in New York City. Our H&H hospitals have been wonderful. A lot of my members were in the H&H hospitals, and they have told me horrific stories. We have to address the systemic racism that is happening. COVID-19 just brought it all out. I have been doing articles and saying a lot of things. I know some of my fellow union leaders have been apprehensive about speaking out, but as a mother and a grandmother of Black children and grandchildren, I have to speak out. I could not help it. We have to reevaluate our educational system. As we have learned through the Black Lives Matter that happened amidst COVID-19 because of this horrendous act of this police officer, we are now realizing the history we were taught in school was wrong. Until we educate properly, give the right information to our children so that they grow up with a sense of self, we are going to stay in trouble. And the problem is so deep that it comes from what's happening in the White House right now, and just playing politics with a public health crisis is deplorable, it's despicable, it's disgusting. I don't have enough adjectives to give you to say what needs to be done. And at this point, I hope, my only hope is that we're able to change who is in that. I'm gonna call it the president's house, because right now I don't even want to call it the White House.
So again, perfect segue for the next question, the next and final question. You have already demonstrated your ability to be a change maker. On the website, you posted a message on the killing of George Floyd and made what some would consider bold statements, with your bottom line being that if all lives matter, Black lives matter. In your opinion, what is the first call to action post-protest in order to try to affect lasting change?
The call to action has to be not only the protests, but to change policy. That's what happened in the civil rights movement. Besides the protests, besides the speaking out, besides the march to Washington, there was an ability to change the Constitution so that certain laws were put in place in those states who were going to refuse to make change, so that if different things happen, people would have the right to live equitably. And that's what's got to happen come this November. There's early voting that's coming out in various states. We not only have to change who's in the president's house, we have to change that Senate so that we can get bills and laws passed that will listen to the people who are speaking out across the world, not just the United States, to say enough is enough. As I said, I have never been so proud of the next generation for speaking up and just not taking it anymore. And I want to say publicly here too, we are not saying that all policemen are bad. We need police. They're talking about defunding the police department. I don't like the word defund. I like reappropriating the budget to make sure that monies go to the communities of color so that they can have programs that will help young people. The way that you see all of these shootings that's happening in these communities, these young children, teenagers don't have anything to do. They feel lost. Teenagers don't produce guns. Let's make that perfectly clear, okay? The gun laws need to be changed. A teenager should not be able to get a handgun, okay? There are people coming from out of states offering these guns to these young people. And it's a matter of educating our young so that they understand that they are worth something. You don't have to be in a gang, quote unquote, or feel that you have to fight your way through what they call the ghetto. I call them communities of color. I came out of New York City Housing Authority. My parents came from the South, from very, very humble beginnings, third grade education. But what they knew is they wanted better lives for their children. And I think everyone that exists in this country, that's their goal. Some get lost along the way because unless you are Black, you have no idea what it is like to be Black. And that's why I think a lot of whites are having trouble with the word white privilege, because they don't understand that they have privilege. But they do. There's a long history of it. And there needs to be more conversations between authorities, even between the police departments and all police structures with communities, so that you understand how we feel and what needs to be done. We have to, as Black women, Black parents, we have to have conversations with our children while the police are supposed to be there to protect and serve, we have conversations that say, don't do anything to make the police upset because I want you to come home. So what is that telling a child? So they're not there to protect and serve me, that I'm a target? These are conversations that need to be had so the police understand why a Black man might run away from you because they're afraid they're going to get killed. So there's a lot that must be done and a lot of conversations to have, but most importantly, we have to change not only our federal government, but the local government most of all. We must find people who understand what the conversations are and where we need to go.
Well, Gloria, thank you so much for this. This was so helpful. It was just an honor for me to be able to speak to you, to communicate with you. I'm sorry we weren't able to meet in person, but thank you for all that you've done for Black and brown people and women, and all that you will continue to do. You really are inspiration to me personally, and certainly, you and what you've done is in line with what Lisney's goals are, and our just plan. So thank you again.
And thank you, and seeing young people like you who are in this fight and want to see where we can go for your future and your children's future just gives me so much more encouragement. And just a word of advice, the struggle is hard, but if you persevere, it's rewarding. Okay, you will see change. You just have to hang in there.
Thank you.
La vida de las mujeres transgénero en México es muy difícil. Día a día hay personas transgénero asesinadas, torturadas. Muchas ocasiones fui víctima de violencia, por eso decidí emigrar a Estados Unidos para tener más seguridad.
Los chicos en la escuela, siempre jugaban como teniendo sexo conmigo, y eso a mí no me gustaba, y, me empujaban y me jalaban el pelo, y cuando sucedió la violación, la persona que me hizo eso, me amenazó, y entonces yo me asusté muchísimo.
Yo ya tenía muchos años en Estados Unidos donde me sentía segura, me sentía contenta, me sentía libre.
Al llegar aquí a Manhattan, me siento libre, porque aquí la gente puede hacer lo que quiera, vestirse como quiera.
Fue después del último cambio de la última administración cuando empecé a sentir demasiado miedo. Ahí estaban deportando demasiada gente y fue la razón más grande para que yo empezara a buscar algún alivio dentro de Estados Unidos por miedo.
So many of our clients who are applying for asylum have been living here in limbo. It's impossible for them to start their lives in the United States because they're worried that at any moment they might have to go back to their home country where they're afraid to return, where they might have already been harmed seriously in many cases. Once people win asylum, they have automatic work authorization and they're on a pathway to citizenship. And so winning asylum is truly an incredible benefit for people.
Ay, Dios mío, yo casi estoy segura que fue obra de Dios. Me siento muy feliz, muy contenta de haber obtenido mi asilo. Pero no soy nada más yo. Tengo un grupo, creé un grupo en Staten Island en el 2016 que se llama Unicorns. Ese grupo lo hice para orientar a las mujeres transgéneros como yo que podemos tener esa ayuda donde todas nosotras desconocíamos que teníamos ese apoyo.
There are not very many resources for LGBT people on Staten Island, to say nothing of resources for LGBTQ folks who are Spanish speaking on Staten Island. And so the Unicorns Collective was founded in order to support each other, provide information, do outreach into the community, give people valuable information about the resources at their disposal, and also just to support one another. I mean, one of the beauties of the Unicorns Collective is that these are folks who understand each other's stories, even if they're from different parts of Mexico, even if they're from different countries. They understand what the others have gone through. They can see each other. They can accept each other for who they are, and they embrace each other, and they celebrate each other for who they are.
Me encantaría que todos sepan que podemos tener un alivio o una ayuda, un apoyo. Estamos aquí en el grupo Únicos para darles todo el apoyo que podamos.
Me gané el asilo político en marzo del año pasado. Fui a la cita de inmigración con mucho miedo, la verdad sí. Me senté, vino el oficial, con unos papeles hasta así. Y ahí cuando me dijo, pues, congratulations, welcome to America, y yo me quedé así como, no sé, en ese momento yo me quedé así como en shock y me quedé así como llorando, estaba llorando de felicidad porque dije, wow, o sea, no lo podía creer. Me encanta vivir en Estados Unidos. Este es mi país, me siento más libre, me siento yo, myself.
El apoyo que nos han dado Legal Service ha sido genial, grandísimo. Las abogadas que nos han apoyado, todo el equipo, en verdad, muchísimas gracias.
I'm happy to introduce Kinjal Patel, who is leading our new COVID-19 response project, and she's responsible for strengthening our LGBTQ HIV advocacy practice. Here's Kinjal interviewing Aaron Frankel from Kramer Levin, discussing immigration, the Lunicorns, and public service.
Aaron Frankel is a partner at Kramer Levin and co-chair of the pro bono committee there. At Kramer Levin, he skillfully and effectively litigates complex patent, trademark, and trade secret issues. He graduated from Harvard Law School cum laude in 2001. Aaron is celebrated in the legal field for his pro bono work and has received numerous awards and recognition, especially in the asylum context. He has won asylum for people fleeing persecution in countries like the Central African Republic and Jamaica. He's also won asylum for people fleeing persecution due to their LGBTQ identities. In the past, working with immigration equality, Aaron and his team filed mandamus claims in federal court for asylum seekers whose applications have been backlogged for many years. As a result of these lawsuits, these asylum seekers' applications were adjudicated and they were eventually granted asylum. In 2019, SILS was thrilled to have Aaron and his team join us in filing federal mandamus claims for members of the Latinx LGBTQ activist group called the Lunicorns. And we are just so grateful for the partnership Aaron has built with us in litigating this case, litigating these claims. We are especially grateful for the time and effort that Aaron has personally put into this case. And so today we are here to celebrate Aaron's work and his commitment to working with Lisney through an interview about how his highly impactful pro bono work has shaped his career and his life. So thanks so much for joining us, Aaron.
Well, thank you for the very kind words, Kinjal. It's been a pleasure to work with you and the rest of the team. And I'm here to speak on behalf of the Kramer Levin team. There's a number of us who've worked on the cases, and everyone has worked really hard to try and get a good result for our clients. And we appreciate all the input from your team. It's in particular, it's been a pleasure to work with you and Ed Josephson, who I met 15 years ago when I was an intern at South Brooklyn Legal Services doing housing court work.
It was such a nice surprise to find out that Ed had been your mentor in the past. How did you get involved with Staten Island Legal Services and the Lunicorns Mandamus Project?
So as you had mentioned, we worked with Immigration Equality to file a mandamus suit on behalf of two clients who had been waiting years for their asylum interviews. After we filed the case, the government moved to dismiss. We had a lengthy briefing process. In the end, eventually the government gave in and gave interviews to our clients. And we had done all this work and we were looking for an opportunity to leverage it. And then we heard that Staten Island Legal Services had a group of refugees that was waiting for their interviews, and it was a perfect opportunity to continue to work on this issue and try and make good law.
How is the Lunicorns Mandamus Project different from other asylum mandamus cases you've worked on?
Well, typically when we do asylum cases, it's really focused on the individual clients who have very unique stories. That's certainly the case here with the Lunicorns, but in addition to their individual stories, there's a really beautiful story of how they've all come to through very different journeys, come to Staten Island and found each other as a family. And they're really excited to tell their story to the whole world. So to be a part of helping them have the chance to tell their story to the government and to get asylum was really appealing to our group. They're a very colorful and interesting bunch of clients.
Definitely. And while working on this mandamus lawsuit, have you learned anything new or like illuminating about asylum policies and procedures from working on this case?
Yeah, what we've really seen in particular from interviewing the Lunicorns and hearing their stories and telling them through the complaint and the submissions to the government is just how much they're suffering now from living in legal limbo. You know, they're not here hiding. They're telling the world who they are. They want legal status, permanent legal status. They want to be able to work here, to pay taxes, to form permanent relationships and put their roots down. And the fact that they've had to wait so long without knowing if their claims will ultimately be granted is hurting each of them in different ways. So hearing their stories and helping them tell their stories has really painted a vivid picture of how much harm is being done by the government's failure to timely adjudicate their claims.
Why is your work with the Lunicorns important to you?
Especially when we're doing pro bono work, the chance to help make a difference in someone's lives is really the reason that we do this. And for the Lunicorns, understanding that if they go back home to Mexico, their lives will be in danger. They won't be able to express themselves. Whereas if they can stay here, they can continue to live in their wonderful community and to be out and to be proud and live their lives as they want. It's really a chance to have a huge impact on the trajectory of their whole lives. So that's, if you're trying to help people, it doesn't get any better than that.
It sounds like you worked on a lot of asylum cases involving LGBTQ clients. So what specifically about working with LGBTQ clients is important to you?
So when I was a first-year associate, I wanted to work on an asylum case, but I didn't know too much about it. And the firm put me on a case representing a gay man from Egypt. And learning about his story, how different his life was in Egypt, where he had to hide his identity. And here in the US, he was in a relationship and he felt that he could really express himself for the first time. It was a real eye-opening experience, and it was so satisfying and rewarding to help him change his life. And I started to work with Immigration Equality, the group who had referred that case to us. I took a couple more cases with them. Eventually, I became a member of the board of Immigration Equality, which I was proud to serve on for 4 years. And it became an area of expertise for me and others in the firm. Every refugee comes with a story and is hoping to have a better life. But in particular for the LGBTQ clients, it can make such a big difference if they're able to stay in the United States.
What specifically about working on immigration cases is important to you?
The asylum system, the global asylum system, was a direct response to the Holocaust, when Jews and other refugees from Germany weren't accepted around the world, leading to millions of deaths. And the global community came together and said that we can't let this happen in the future. It's a fundamental human right. My family has Holocaust survivors, and in that sense, I feel a personal connection to the issue. My wife's family are refugees from Russia. My family is also third generation, but not that long ago that they came here seeking a better life. So it's always been an important issue growing up to my family, and I'm happy to help carry on that legacy today.
That's really amazing, Aaron. We really appreciate your work in this field. And now I want to talk about your your position as co-chair on the pro bono committee at Kramer Levin. When did you become co-chair of the pro bono committee?
So I've been the co-chair of the pro bono committee for about 3 years. I started doing pro bono when I was a first year at Kramer Levin. We encourage all of our associates to work on pro bono from the start. And it's been a great part of my time with the firm.
How does your work on the pro bono committee influence or inform your legal work in general?
There are a lot of benefits from pro bono work. The main reason we do it is because it's the right thing to do with the privileges we have. There's an obligation to help others, but working on pro bono matters can be a fantastic experience for attorneys. All the asylum work I've done is really about telling stories, meeting our clients, understanding their stories, helping them tell their stories to the government. And my day job is a patent litigator, where our job is also to tell stories to the judge and to the jury. So it's been a fantastic experience, especially starting as a young associate, to have that many opportunities to practice collecting all the facts and organizing them into an effective story.
Besides asylum cases, what are some other pro bono cases that you and your firm work on?
We're proud to have a very wide variety of pro bono opportunities, and we want to find work that is meaningful for everyone. So we have transactional lawyers who like to do litigation type work because it's not part of their day job, and other lawyers who like doing transactional work. We do a lot of advising for small businesses. We work on housing matters. The firm has a extern with Brooklyn Legal Services working on housing matters at all times. We have our immigration program. We do pro bono wills. We help pro se litigants. We're in family court. We recently launched the Racial Justice Initiative, where we're working on some of the most important issues of our time. We're helping protesters who were arrested at recent demonstrations. We're working to help prisoners who are in overcrowded and very dangerous conditions. We work on voting rights, reproductive freedom. So pretty much anywhere where there's a legal need, we're looking to help out if we can.
Why are pro bono partnerships between firms and nonprofit organizations so important to Kramer Levin?
You know, we're really good at finding corporate clients and helping them with their corporate needs, but we really rely on organizations like yours to help us find pro bono clients who have good needs. We rely on your expertise to help mentor us and supervise the cases and screen the cases. So that partnership is so important to our pro bono program. We probably work with 15 or 20 organizations regularly. And let me take this opportunity again to thank you for bringing the opportunity to us to work with the Lunicorns. I think we wouldn't have, it's very unlikely we would have ever found them without your help. And we appreciate all the contributions of your team to moving that case forward.
Hi, folks. This is truly crazy. Every year until now, the Staten Island Legal Services Luncheon has been held on some kind of glorious spring day in April or May, a day of sunshine or rain, but always one that welcomes transition to warmth and open doors and a small hope that work pressures might lessen. This year, because we're all living in an upside-down world, we have the opposite. Another transition for sure, but one that's headed toward cooler weather and continued closed doors, and somehow a workload that has not seemed to lessen even throughout the summer. How is this possible? We all know that the COVID pandemic hit New York City particularly hard. Here in Staten Island, nearly 16,000 cases, more than 750 deaths, and an unemployment rate that has skyrocketed to 18%. Before the pandemic, nearly 60,000 Staten Island residents had incomes under the federal poverty level. That reality is now much worse for those families and for so many more who've been impoverished by unemployment. And we know that poverty leads to potentially life-threatening problems. These are tough times, and yet we are thrilled to be able to honor today Gloria Middleton, who's fought for wage equality and decent health care for decades, and who said, "For me, it is natural to work and fight for women of color. As a mother and grandmother, I have to speak out." For our staff at Staten Island Legal Services, it's natural to work and fight for women of color. We, too, have to speak out. We heard from Sofia Alejo, a member of La Unicorns, who said that our representation in partnership with Kramer Levin helped her feel free. Me siento libre. Me siento libre. And we heard from Aaron Frankel at Kramer Levin, who talked about how La Unicorns found each other as a family and told their story to the government. As Aaron said, if you're trying to help someone, it doesn't get any better than this. For our staff at Staten Island Legal Services, it doesn't get any better than helping our clients get and keep the essentials of life: shelter, safety, economic and family stability, and access to health care and education. This past year alone, Legal Services NYC helped more than 105,000 children and their families across the city. More than 7,500 of them here in Staten Island. And much of this work was done while our offices were closed and while the pandemic raged throughout the city and Staten Island. Our ability to keep doing this critical work is threatened because of potential losses of funding from the state and the city due to the economic downturn. So we must continue to turn to you for help. And we must continue to thank you for your support. As everyone in this room knows, there can be no justice when one side has a lawyer and the other does not. Nathan Hecht, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of Texas, captured perfectly the value of support for legal services funding when he said, "Justice for only those who can afford it is neither justice for all nor justice at all." Staten Island Legal Services makes life better and the system fairer for everyone in Staten Island. I'm so pleased to acknowledge and thank Nadia Hernandez and her staff for their amazing work, and to thank all of you, and especially Gloria Middleton, La Unicorns, Kramer Levin, and the Staten Island Legal Services Advisory Board, including longtime supporter Surrogate Judge Titone, for helping us to celebrate, and for helping us to deliver every day on a core promise of our Constitution: equal opportunity, fairness, and justice for all. Thank you.